I recently returned to the vault after seeing the new Superman film, directed by James Gunn, and with the performance of previous comic book films this year, it's no exaggeration to say that a film like this could decide not just the fate of WB Studios, but the overall genre of superhero movies. With that being said, does it live up to the challenge? Let me put it this way. While I would normally refrain from leaking spoilers for new releases, I do not respect this movie enough to extend it that courtesy. You have been warned. The story starts 3 years into Superman's activities, with metahumans being an established presence all over Earth. Superman himself is doing good where he can, and this has made him the center of public attention, in both good ways and bad. His interference in foreign conflict has begun to draw suspicion from the world, and genius megalomaniac Lex Luthor is making use of the negative publicity in a plan to wipe out the Man of Steel. After Luthor's forces attack the Fortress of Solitude and reveal information precious to Superman, the hero turns himself in to allay suspicions. Unfortunately, he's put under Luthor's custody and placed in a prison cell in a pocket dimension with an inmate who can incapacitate him with kryptonite. Yes, Luthor has his own pocket dimension. He's essentially running on the villain equivalent of God mode for most of the movie, but I will elaborate on that later. It takes the cooperation of Lois Lane and the Justice Gang, a stupid name, and we know it's stupid because the movie keeps reminding us, to locate and free Superman so he can thwart Luthor's schemes and clear his public image. Just to prove that I am not entirely malicious in my critique, I will begin with the elements I enjoyed. This won't take long. The overall aesthetic is pleasant. There's an emphasis on bright colors, Metropolis has its familiar shine, and the environments are generally easy on the eyes. Much like the 1978 film, I particularly liked the design of the Fortress of Solitude. It's a shame its power doesn't live up to the glamour, but there will be more on that later. We also see a talented cast providing competent performances. I actually think David Corenswet was a good choice for Superman. He can pull off an awkward Clark Kent and a serious Superman. At times. And Nicholas Hoult is an apt choice for Lex Luthor. He plays the smug, self-confident villain role to a hilt, which makes it satisfying when he's finally defeated. Although I could have done without his pouty, near tantrum at the end. I do have to point out that there is a difference between performance and characterization, and once again I will elaborate on that later. I will also give the film credit for making an effort to emulate the spirit of Superman's story. A great deal of emphasis is placed on Superman's compassion for others, and his willingness to save citizens, animals, and even villains. Although I think they did overdo it with the animals at times. And there are some heartfelt moments shared between him and Ma and Pa Kent. And action scenes are generally solid, with a lot of bright, flashy spectacle and hard-hitting combat. As long as you don't look too closely. Ugh. Let's get the little things out of the way. I know I said the visuals were generally good, but that's not the case under serious examination. Camera angles frequently put characters under a fisheye effect, and the CGI is glaringly obvious when seen up close, and Superman's flight scenes often compound the issues annoyingly enough. Say what you will about green screening, but I'll take that over Rubberman. And while I like Superman's actor, I am not a fan of the costume. I've heard Corenswet put in the effort to build up his physique for the role, but you wouldn't know it by looking at him. The extra textures and pads on the suit give him a doughy appearance, and they add unnecessary complexity. Previous costumes had a simple yet bold design, and they were clearly made to show off a super physique. Not that the costumes for the Justice Gang are any better. Everyone gets a chance to wear an unflattering outfit. Now, I can forgive roughshod visuals and camera work as long as a movie has good writing to support it. And this one does not. For starters, the movie is cluttered, in more ways than one. Increasing the cast size increases the number of threads to follow, and Superman's personal story is juggled between his interactions with the Justice Gang, his relationship with Lois, her investigation into Luthor, Luthor's schemes and henchmen, and even Jimmy Olsen and his relationship with an inside contact in Luthor's business. Multiple characters and subplots could have been cut to give us a leaner, more focused story. Which is especially the case with Krypto. With all the screen time he received in the promotions, he's only really useful once or twice throughout the movie, and it wouldn't have taken much to work around those instances. Now, I like dogs as much as the next undead incarcerated war criminal, but he added nothing to the story. James Gunn's sense of humor is also present here and on full display. We get needlessly quippy dialogue, goofy behavior from supposed adults, animal antics. There are literal cyber monkeys at keyboards working in bot farms, and even a giant fight scene casually occurring in the background during what should be a somber moment. Some of this may have been appropriate for a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy or The Suicide Squad, but in a Superman movie, it disrupts the attempts at seriousness and often feels out of place. Dialogue and exposition are clumsy as well. Background information and important abilities are haphazardly worked into conversations, such as an explanation of Superman's hypno glasses. Yes, they actually halt a conversation to explain the glasses. And the result often feels clunky and inorganic. The exposition also serves as a lazy explanation for how Luthor acquired all the tools at his disposal. Any single one of them would have been the focus of a major scheme in the past. Superpowered minions, an enslaved kaiju, a source of kryptonite, a clone of Superman, or an entire pocket dimension. And thanks to the power of off-screen activity and casual reveals, he has them all at the start of the film. It's not just contrived, it also undermines the classic dynamic between Superman and Luthor. Namely, that for all of Luthor's assets, Superman almost always remains beyond his power. And because this Luthor is already running on God mode, that is never the case in this movie until the very end. Even the Fortress of Solitude falls like tissue paper when Lex shows up with his brute squad. But the criticism doesn't end there. Not by a long shot. I said that there's a difference between performance and characterization, and Superman is the biggest victim of that here. Cornsweet does his best with what he's given, but what he's given is often not very good. This Superman is prone to losing his temper and letting his emotions rule his behavior, while prior incarnations of the character depict him as serious, focused, and formal, even when he's just beginning his work. And we're told this Superman has been active for 3 years. He claims this emotional openness is part of his human strength, but it doesn't inspire much confidence to see the Man of Steel throwing temper tantrums when he most needs to keep a steady focus. Trust me, that interview is even more frustrating to watch in its entirety. It doesn't help that he's also treated like a punching bag throughout the movie. He does a fine job saving people and animals from danger, but when it comes to serious fights, he always needs some outside help to pull through. Whether it's the Justice Gang, Crypto, Lois, or even a random civilian. He struggled in past stories, of course, but we could always trust that he would be victorious in the end, and it was rare for him to need help. I can't speak for everyone, but I actually like a Superman movie where Superman can win his own fights. He's not even Crypto's master. That title goes to Supergirl. Yes, she makes a brief appearance in this movie, and she puts Superman on dog-sitting duty while she goes partying on other worlds like a bratty teenager. I wish I could say that's the worst part of all this, but the well goes deeper. The greatest and most unforgivable sin of this movie comes at the expense of Jor-El and Lara. Superman keeps a recording of their final words on display at the Fortress of Solitude as a source of solace, but the message is partially damaged. When it's finally restored partway through the story, we hear the awful truth. Are you prepared? Only half of the recording, the half that Superman's heard all his life, is a message of parental concern and love. The other half is an instruction to take over Earth. I wish I were joking. James Gunn actually had Jor-El and Lara send baby Kal-El to Earth in a bid for world domination. And there's no second reveal that Luthor falsified the footage. The movie goes out of its way to state that the message is real. Unbelievable. Superman's upbringing on Earth has always been a core part of his character, but not at the expense of demonizing his biological parents or Kryptonian heritage. I don't know which movie vilified its hero's parents in a worse manner, The Batman or this. Sure, I attempted a bloody conquest of my own world when I was still alive, but I never tried to twist or subvert any sort of heroic image. I was an honest villain through and through. This movie didn't need to just be good. It needed to be spectacular. As it stands, it's going to be polarizing at the very best. And what's genuinely disappointing is that as cautious as I was beforehand, I really did want to be impressed. I've spent the past few weeks looking at previous Superman media on this channel. Do yourself a favor, save yourself the price of a movie ticket, and check those out instead. I'm going to go find a nice quiet corner of the vault and pick out some better stories to enjoy, because this one will not deserve a place on my shelf.